I am Reverend Lori. I'm one of your staff ministers here at New Vision. And for those of you who are here in the sanctuary and did not adjust your clocks, thank you. Thank you for being here. Right. And those of you online who maybe had your circadian rhythms disrupted, thank you for adjusting. Okay, so last week, Reverend Leslie, she closed out our series on harvest and stewardship. And we are moving into that season of gratitude. Well, you can tell already that I'm already feeling this sense of gratitude, this sense of joy that comes when we are grateful. Yesterday, we actually kicked it off because we had a practitioner retreat at the beautiful Franciscan Renewal Center. All of our practitioners came, and Ron and Jeff hosted, and I facilitated a beautiful workshop to really honor and cherish our practitioners. They are the healing arm of this community. And if you've never had the beautiful gift of sitting with a practitioner, either in the 5-minute prayer zone or, calling them up or being in one of their classes, I highly encourage you to do so, because they will know the truth for you when times are a little dark, when times are challenging, or if you just need a really great cheerleader when things are going really great. Your practitioner is right there. So there's my open invitation for you to experience that. I'd also like to speak a little special blessing for those practitioners who will be doing a pet blessing today. So keep that in mind out there. My talk today is dreams, too big, too small, or just right. Well, it's not a continuum of too big and too small, because really it's all in God. And everything is just right. Even those challenges. And I'll explain that a little later. I asked myself, this talk idea for dreams too big, too small, and just right, I had to sit with that for a little while. And I asked myself, what dreams did I plant that far exceeded my expectations? Well, that happened in the area of travel. Because I tell you, I'm good for about 1 or 2 trips a year, and then that was prior to pandemic. Pandemic, nothing happened. This last year, I was gifted with experiencing 9 trips from one side of the country to the other, Seattle multiple times, Santa Fe, Martha's Vineyard, and the most luxurious of all was Hawaii. Yeah, let's everybody take a deep breath. I put on my bucket list at one time that I would like to travel more with my loved ones. I would like to experience luxury travel to beautiful destinations with my loved ones. Well, I want you to know that Spirit did not disappoint. I got to experience first-class travel, which, if you haven't, I highly recommend. Yes, I highly recommend. And I also told Spirit that I will have some more of that because it was lovely. I also, I also got to experience my middle daughter's wedding. That was in Hawaii with her beloved. It was beautiful, words cannot describe. And I am also anticipating the marriage of my youngest daughter in early December. I took a look at some of my dream seeds that didn't quite manifest. Does that ever happen? Yeah. Some that don't fit anymore, but some that just kind of fall short. You're like, well, wait a minute. I was doing everything right. Why didn't that happen? Well, for me, this happened in the area of relationships. There was a relationship of mine that there's an estrangement, and it wasn't mended. And I have to tell you, from the depths of my being, how very sad that is. It affected my entire family. There was grief. There were dreams that were shattered. There were hard times that I wasn't sure I could walk through. And I did. With the help of my practitioners, with the help of my ministers, with the help of understanding human beings who supported me at various times, people who reached out to me in amazing ways. And I did my work. I did work on forgiveness. I did work on release. And I want you to know that I was able to move through that. What was going on simultaneously is I experienced from October to October nine beloveds, people I loved that touched my life, transitioned from this earthly plane to another. Let's just breathe that in. That's a lot of loss. Yeah. Okay. And that grief and that sorrow compounded the other loss. All of that work was rich, it was full, and I think for myself, by walking through that, I came to know love and the sanctity and preciousness of life in a deeper and fuller way. Hardly seems possible, but it's true. So this leads me to my first truth. Jeff, the slide. The universe is always broadcasting. What helped me along the way is I stumbled upon this book called Conversations with the Universe. This book was by my side for months. I loved it. It talked about that the universe or divine intelligence is always broadcasting signals through nature, through songs, through numbers, through coincidences that start to make sense for us. And my talk title really could have been Conversations with the Universe and What I Really Learned. So it was those little clues that I kept picking up, putting in my pocket, and I called them my God glimmers. The author of the book, Simran Singh, she says she described life on the physical plane as Earth School. I kind of like that, Earth School. And she says that our eternal selves come to know deep spiritual truths by experiencing its opposites. So when we walk through a period of lack, we can know the spiritual truth of abundance. When we walk through the absence of power, feeling small and weak, we can know the real truth that we are divinely powered by the one source. The book described how we are receptive and attentive to those clues when we go into our heart-centered space. When we become, that was a message from God. Thank you. Thank you. When we go within and become still to that quiet recess in our own heart, we can hear, we can see things differently. Instead of this clouded small vision, we can begin to see these through God's eyes, through a different lens. All of these clues come at the perfect time and in just the right way for us to understand it. And if it applies to me, it applies to each and every one of you here, that you can begin to hear those messages from the divine, those universal broadcasting signals, if you just dial in and get quiet and get still. On being still, Ernest Holmes, the founder of our teaching, wrote, "Only peace can enter the gates of reality and sit at the table of love. The divine host serves not its bounty to confusion, but distributes its gifts to those who enter its gates with peace in their minds and love in their hearts." By listening and reflecting, I understood that grief, loss, change, chaos, disappointment can certainly create a healthy environment for a pity party. Has anyone had a pity party? The emotions of deep sadness, anger, confusion, even that nagging question of why me had reared its head. But I had a life to live. I had weddings to plan. I had travel to do. I had a calling to fulfill. I found it very easy to rage against injustices, to stockpile my hurts, and lament on the negative. I found it very easy to do that. But I tapped into my inner guidance, to that inner space where I know that I am loved. And I reached to those God glimmers that kept pouring across my life. Poems, prayers, songs, a call from the right person at just the right moment that I needed it. There were contemporary and ancient sages that wove into my life. So these God glimmers, I'm going to stockpile a bunch of them in my talk today, but I'd like to share them with you. One came from Rabbi Harold Kushner. And in his book, Why Bad Things Happen to Good People, I'm pretty certain that at times I questioned spirit. I certainly shouted to the universe, I didn't deserve this. I'm a loving, peaceful person. I'm happy. And yet I wasn't. So the question of why did this happen? Rabbi Harold Kushner asked us to reframe this question. Why did this happen? And turn it into, now that this happened, what can I do next? We don't deny that things happen, that bad things happen, that illness happens, that loss happens, that relationships end. But how do we grow from those experiences? This simple shift in perspective allowed me to pivot from my private pity party and hurt to an opening and expansion of my heart, revealing the power of love. I began experiencing more and more love, more joy, and more good. He also told us to reframe our understanding of prayer. Prayer connects us in community to those who share a similar path of hopes and fears. It lets us know that we are not alone. Prayer also connects us with the divine. It connects us with God in a way that strengthens us to handle those challenges that come up in our lives. Now let's turn to truth number 2. The universe is always for us. How many of you ever thought about that? Well, this God glimmer came to me when I was nursing a little cold, and I was buried under blankets and binge watching Netflix. And all these movies that I had picked, there was a reference to Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein wrote, "Ask yourself one question. Is this a friendly universe?" This is a great question, and it's been discussed by many great sages throughout time. Einstein goes on to say, if you expect disappointment and believe life is supposed to be hard, that's what you will experience. But if you expect surprises, like this morning, and believe life can be easy and enjoyable, then that's what you will experience. I expected today would be easy. I expected today would be joyful. And look, here we are. The master teacher, Jesus, also said, "It is done unto us as we believe." You see a pattern here? The trail of those God glimmers by Einstein and Jesus led me back to our Science of Mind teaching. And the question of whether or not the universe is for or against us begged another question. Am I ready to receive? Are you ready to receive? Hey, that is the acronym for a Science of Mind treatment. A prayer. R, recognition. U, unification. R, realization. T, thanksgiving. And R, release. Are you ready to receive? Hey, we can do that. And if you want to know, I'll meet you in the lobby and I'll explain that. But Ernest Holmes, the founder of our teaching, he wrote 2 belief statements. We believe that heaven is within us, and we experience it to the degree that we become aware of it. Okay, well, heaven's not out there somewhere, someplace that we'll get to one day. It's right here. It's right here. In the moments of sadness and in the moments of joy, heaven can be right here. We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all. Not just me, but to you, and to you, and to you, and to you, and to you out there. To really embrace this idea of the universe is good, loving, and giving, I turned to the glossary and I found a definition on the word happiness. Happiness is a state of well-being or enjoyment of good of any kind. We have the right to any happiness that we can conceive of, provided that it harms no one and that it is in keeping with a progressive life, of life unfolding. We can conceive of any good, and we can have it as long as we harm no one and it progresses life. Ernest knew these truths, and that the universe was for us, and supplying us with everything we need for our fullest expression. But we must exercise the freedom of choice, which brings us to truth number 3. we always have the freedom of choice. Like Arizona and choosing not to roll our clocks back. Many of you know I work as a hospice chaplain. That work is my calling. It is rewarding. It is sacred. It can be joyous, but yes, there are times it can be sad. Back in May, I was navigating the highs and lows of chaplaincy and walking out my own grief and sorrow, and the universe spoke to me again in one of those beautiful God glimmers. It invited me to participate in youth church, and I said yes. I signed up for once a month. And I want you to know that those beautiful, loving children in our youth church has opened my heart back up in a place that here I am. Here I am. It's lovely. I took something that was negative and sad and I turned it around and enjoyed something that is life-affirming and joyous. Well, Ralph Waldo Emerson, he is one of my absolute favorite poets of all time, and he was one of Ernest's. He wrote an essay called Success. And I'm going to read this little blurb, and this is one that I have hanging around my house. And sometimes even my kids call me on, if I'm talking a little bit too negative here and there, they'll call me on it. And so I go back to this favorite saying of mine, and it says, "Don't hang a dismal picture on the wall. And do not daub with sables and glooms in your conversation. Don't be a cynic and a disconsolate preacher. Don't bewail and bemoan. Omit the negative perspectives. Nerve us with incessant affirmations. And don't waste yourself in rejection, nor bark against the bad." I could do that. I could bark against the bad. "But chant the beauty of the good." Let's remember that again. Don't bark against the bad, but chant the beauty of the good. It has become an intention, a commitment, and a solid practice in my life to honor this freedom of choice. I tend to tip the scales more often than not towards the good and less against the bad. My daughter, who recently got married, and her new son-in-law, Brandon, they brought to our family a new ritual that they call 3 gratefuls and 1 looking forward to. Every Sunday night we gather, either on the phone or, when we're together in person, and we practice this ritual where everyone shares 3 things that they're grateful for and something that they're looking forward to, an expectancy. This affirmation of love has brought us closer together. The circulation of gratitude keeps flowing, and it reminds us to look ahead, expecting more good. So there's a picture up here of Josie, my dog. Look at her eyes. She's just blissed out. There can be days like that. So the last slide I'd like to show are points to ponder this week. 3 truths. The universe is always broadcasting. Be still and listen. The universe is always for us. But ask yourself, am I ready to receive? And we always have the freedom of choice. Expect the best and chant the beauty of the good. I would be most grateful if you would join me in an affirmative prayer. Oh, sweet Spirit, there is only one life, one infinite, powerful presence that is loving and generous and giving of itself to all of creation. Oh, this power, this presence, this oneness of which each and every one of us are a part. No one is left out. No one is forgotten. We are one in the one. So I speak a word of blessing on behalf of each and every person who gathered here this morning in this sanctuary, who joined us online, who felt that urge of presence moving in and through and as them in such glorious, glorious ways. I am so grateful for our practitioners and our stream team and our divine groove. I am delighted at the gifts of Aaron Thomas. My heart is filled to overflowing. I am thankful to walk out all of life, those little glimmers that are tough and those things that I celebrate with open heart. All of it is God, and I am grateful. So I cast this prayer forward, knowing and affirming there is more good and more good and more good for all people. I let this go, and I let this be, and so it is.